All right, back down with the Chiefs pit, Timmy Petty, Mark Petty, and Richie Petty. We're going to go back a little bit further before the Petty brothers started. We have been looking and doing a little research in there, and Julie and grandfather Lee, their sister, actually started racing before they did. Did y'all have any idea about that?
Our great aunt Frances.
Yeah, I think there was 9 of them, brothers and sisters.
Now you're saying she started driving before
and she was a little older than they were, and she started racing like jalopies, like you said, or and doing stunt cars.
Okay.
And turning like a Joey Chitwood thrill show. She was doing thrill shows back in the early '40s, and then some long time in there, she became a pilot, and she was in some kind of a stunts, like a circus deal, doing stunt shows for airplanes. So she was the first daredevil of the family, more or less. Did y'all know anything about her?
I did not know that she started racing before they did. Now, I'd heard about the pilot stuff.
Yeah, does she live around here?
Well, I think after she become of age, she moved to Maryland, and that's where she died up in Maryland.
Okay.
I don't think I ever seen her but once or twice.
Well, back in '86, she visited down here, and I met her then. That's the only time I remember meeting her. But Gene, our cousin Gene, Julie's son, he was really close to her. They were close.
I just know looking in her eyes, it looked just like looking in Lee's
looked just
eyes.
like it. And Julie, they all three look alike. But like I said, there was 9 of them. And she was.
But she was the first driver in the family.
I think so. Francis Petty.
That's funny because I was looking at some stuff about some Dodge stuff. Early, I don't know. I think it's on the Hall of Fame website. But there's a woman that I had never heard of by the name of Betty Skelton, who was a stunt pilot, and she also done the land speed stuff on the beach, and had ties with Big Bill France.
Yes, and I had seen some stuff about her, but I'd forgot about her. But you were talking about her the other day,
right?
And she did some land speed stuff on the beach, like you said, doing them trial runs like they used to. They'd run down.
Not only with the Dodges, and she moved up to Corvettes later, but she also was the first woman to go over 300 miles per hour at Bonneville.
Wow, is that right?
Yeah, that's what I read. And she trained with the Mercury 7 astronaut squad. And they called her the number 8.
Did they really?
Yeah, but her name was the First Lady of Firsts.
Right.
And again, I'd never heard of it. And then didn't you come up with a picture or something?
Going through grandmother's pictures and stuff, there was an autographed picture to Lee from Betty Skelton.
In 54.
In 54, yeah. And then we had some other things, newspaper articles, showing them together, and she was at a lot of NASCAR events. So I don't know if she was just tied in with the speed runs or whatever, but she was a big deal in the early 50s with NASCAR.
Well, that's cool. And also, I seen it. I was looking at some pictures online, and she had a STP jacket. I don't know where that was from. Probably Bonneville.
Yeah.
But over the years, and I'm gonna move forward, and then we're gonna go back because I know where we're gonna go with this. But that Paula Murphy was also tied in with STP in like 72 or 3.
Yeah,
well, and she took a used Richard Petty car and a used engine and set the enclosed course record in 1973.
At Talladega?
Yep.
Wow.
I remember seeing an article.
And she also ran over, I don't know her mile per hour, but she went to Bonneville too.
Wow. I didn't know none of that till you brought that up.
Again, there's a list. There's a 3-page list on Wikipedia.
That's the beauty of our deal. We got so much that's happened in our family that
you don't even think about it.
You might remember something and it didn't go with me, or you might remember, and then we talk about it, and it's like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that.
Well, and then we get to looking through the stuff, and they saved articles here and articles there, and it's neat looking at the Petty articles, but then you learn so much more about NASCAR history because it's all in there, and with these
the pioneering women of speed of any kind, or daredevils, like you said, Aunt Frances was.
But they make such a big to-do when a woman driver comes into NASCAR, and it's like, oh, this is going to be the first, or this or that. Do y'all realize that women were at the first NASCAR race?
You said that
in June of 1949. Sarah Christensen.
You wouldn't expect that name. But
Sarah Christensen was in the very first race.
And the second one.
Yeah, she actually finished better than grandfather in that race because grandfather ran.
That's right.
Now, you go to the second Grand National race
On the beach.
on the beach, July of 1949, the second ever run. You had 3 women. You had Ethel Mobley, which is part of the Flock clan.
Right.
You had Sarah Christensen, and you had Louise Smith. They're all 3 in that race. And
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty neat.
Yes, and I think Ethel Mobley. I think she ran 11th in the race. I think she was the top finishing.
Well, I always heard that she was pretty good.
Now,
but her brother Tim was really phenomenal.
right, Tim and Fonte and Bob were her brothers, so there was 4 of them. I don't know if they had any more brothers and
Yeah, I don't
sisters, but
either.
that was a whole crowd of them racing against each other at one time. And I think her husband, I think it was Charlie Mobley, I think he's the one that got Tim involved with a modified in 47 or 48 to run. So
Really?
he they kind of started the racing deal with the Flocks.
They were from down in Georgia, right?
Well, they originally come out of Fort Payne, Alabama.
Well, I wouldn't have ever
And
guessed.
and then they moved into Georgia, and I think they were in the distilling business a little bit too.
Well, that explains a few
That's
things.
where the singing group's from, Alabama, right?
Yeah,
Fort Payne?
Fort Payne, Alabama. That's right. Now, I was looking through some of the records there, and grandfather won his first race October '49 in Heidelberg, right?
Yeah.
Sarah Christensen finished 5th in that race.
Whatever happened to her? Do we know?
Well, her husband was owner Frank Christensen. He was a driver owner for a while too. But if you look at the record books, I don't know. I'm just looking through the record books. He lasted for 3 or 4 years, and then he just disappeared.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that name pretty well, but the Betty Skelton, I'd never heard. But all these women are really
No,
interesting.
hey, hats off to them. But we got to throw a little bit of some credit out there too to Anne France, Big Bill's wife. She wasn't a racer, but without her, you wouldn't have NASCAR racing because she and Bill worked hand in hand to build this sport. So
She was quite firm in running the business part of it.
when we went down there and visited the Daytona, there's a statue out front of Bill and Annie France, and I think that was really fitting because without her or without him, you wouldn't have NASCAR racing.
No, and again, can y'all think of any women that were involved in any kind of driving in the '60s? Because I can't.
I'd have to go back and look on that deal. Now, I know in '77, grandfather was a Grand Marshal for the Firecracker 400 down there in Daytona. And there's a picture of Louise Smith and Janet Guthrie and a couple of other girls that were in the Paul Revere.
Yeah.
They was foreign drivers. But like you said, in the '60s, I'm sure there was probably somebody, but I can't recall any names. It gets into the '70s.
Well,
and then
Janet was the next
Janet
one I was
Guthrie,
going to mention, as well as Paula Murphy, because I know she was involved in the early '70s through mid '70s.
But anyway, before we get into
Yeah,
them,
yeah.
let's go back to Ethel and Louise and Sarah. They were getting into a business back when it was tough.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
they didn't give them a break because no, them guys were trying to put them out because they didn't want to race against them.
Right.
It was, you didn't want to get beat by a woman. You know
Well,
what I
yeah,
mean?
or you don't get beat, period.
No, I know that,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying it was
That's
a men's.
racing to- but
They
that's
were
racing to eat.
It was a men's club more or less, and they were coming into it. So I'm telling you, I admire them. I admire those ladies.
Absolutely, and that's why we're doing this, because that's why I asked y'all about the '60s, because if there's anybody,
Yeah, I don't
please
know.
write in there that you know them, because I don't.
Janet. So we get into the '70s.
Yep.
We got Janet Guthrie.
Who had some pretty good equipment.
I think she was the first woman to run a Daytona 500.
Is that right?
I think she qualified there in '77 or so. So she was the first one. She didn't really have any big finishes, but she was consistent and she did good. I remember her racing when we were at Michigan in '77, '78, and whatever. And I just remember that Kelly girl car out there
Yep.
running around.
Yep.
And she wasn't bad. I mean, she wasn't. I think maybe Sarah Christensen right now is still the top female
Performer.
Yeah. So
Yeah, well, I'm not going to argue that.
Stat wise.
yes, that was.
But then
She
you
had
move
top
a little
five.
forward in the '80s and the early '80s, and I remember Robin McCall, who I always thought, because I was involved with a lot of racing then too, and I remember she did pretty well, and then all of a sudden she just went away, and I don't know why, and then you had
Wasn't she married to Wally Dallenbach?
I think so. I think that's the fact.
I know you was gonna say Patty Moise. That's out in Sawyer. They wasn't
Right,
married.
but I mean, she had a lot of races.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and done fairly well as far as I know. But that was in the '80s and maybe throughout the early '90s.
Yeah.
And then I didn't write her name down, but Shauna Robinson come along.
I raced a Goodies Dash race in '88 there at Charlotte. It was the little 4-cylinder deal, and Shauna was in that race, and this other girl, Karen Schultz. They were in that race, so that was the first time I'd ever
I
raced.
always heard she was good, but I don't remember seeing her race much.
Well, I
That
think
Schultz
she.
woman.
Yeah, I don't know whatever happened to her, but she was a good driver. And then I think Shauna, we competed against each other in the 125 at Daytona in '94 or '5 sometime. But other than that, I don't think I had a lot of races with lady drivers in them. Now,
Well-
you competed in the late models
Yeah,
against
we raced a couple times.
Kelly
Yeah.
Earnhardt. And Kelly Earnhardt. What
I think Tri-County, we raced against her. a little
I
bit,
watched
but-
her,
Yeah.
and I think she was a good driver.
Pretty decent.
Yeah, she could.
she hold her own.
She could will it. So I was always impressed with her skills.
Yeah.
Well, and then, like I said, I mentioned that Paula Murphy, and I don't know if she ever run any NASCAR. I know she was a drag racer, but I know the King was involved with helping her do that record. And then we helped drive her through the Brevacs in the truck deal. We provided engines for that Tina Gordon.
Yep.
And she actually done pretty good a couple times, I remember.
Yep.
And then later on, we sold some of the old Dodge stuff before the Craftsman trucks moved over to the spec engine, or the whatever you call that now, to Jennifer Jo Cobb. So we've all had a little bit of involvement of helping these. And then, like, that Betty Skelton was a teammate through the Chrysler and Dodge deal with Lee.
Wow.
And again, like you said, we're so involved and immersed in what you're doing, you don't think about it. But this,
Well,
I think this is going to be a pretty good.
Well,
little
and then as time goes on, there's more and more and more.
Oh, there,
I mean, because you look on the on YouTube and stuff. There's women that's running dirt cars and sprint cars and drag cars, and I mean,
well, here in the last couple of weeks, this little Jade, is it Advinson? I don't know how to say her name. I apologize, but she's just won a midget national championship, and that should be like the first one, shouldn't it?
oh, I don't know.
Look.
You go back. You talking about different forms.
And I know
of
we've
racing.
moved way forward.
You go
here.
back and talking about the '60s. Drag racing wasn't NASCAR, but like Shirley Muldowney.
Muldowney, yeah, she broke
Well,
through.
no, I
You know what I
by
mean?
all means, don't forget
And
her.
that Erica Enders now.
Oh, she's phenomenal.
She's arguably one of the best pro stock
But-
drivers ever, man or
Period.
woman.
But as far as
Yeah.
the NASCAR wise, I can't think of anybody in the '60s.
Well,
Yeah,
and what's the? Well, I can't. think.
But here's the deal, and we're
John
all in
Force's
agreement.
daughters.
If you can get the job done, I don't care who you are.
Me neither.
Get
No,
out
but,
there.
but it's pretty cool to go back and
Yes,
see that.
it is.
Like you said, that there were ladies running in the very first NASCAR race.
Yes, and then
And I didn't know that until you mentioned
But like
it,
I said,
because
we-
he was reading the
yeah,
record
I did.
book.
I was, you learn something every day, and then I admire them because they were. It
Well,
was
like
tough.
you said, there's a lot of history on the YouTube and different channels, but if you look on Wikipedia, there's 3 pages of what they call the Craftsman truck, the Busch or Xfinity series now, and the Cup series, and there's quite a few women that has tried their hand at this at what we love, but as well as the daredevil and the seeking speed. We all are looking for speed, some form.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of this.
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
with Aunt Frances.
We kind of got way
No,
out there.
this is
Yeah,
good.
well-
I mean, I'm learning, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it. But let's go back to Aunt Frances. There must be something in that Petty Jeans that's
I don't know,
Daredevil,
man.
because there was 3 of them.
And
I can't
before
explain
you
it.
told
I
me
can't
that, I
explain
never
it.
knew that she
Yep.
started driving before they did, and they both
Yeah.
were pretty decent in their time frame there.
Well, we could go on and on about some of this because you got women now that's on the pit crews. That's NASCAR officials. That's it. It's opened up a lot. But without these beginners,
Pioneers.
Sarah Christensen, Ethel Mobley, and Louise Smith, without those 3 to begin this in NASCAR, you wouldn't have these other ladies. So, I admire
Well,
them.
we blew right past Danica. She had a pretty
Yeah,
good
but
ride
she's
here.
Yeah, but more people know about that in the
Right.
modern.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. We were mentioning the ones that I'd never
The
heard
pioneers.
of.
Yeah.
I've heard of Sarah Christensen, but I never knew that she was that.
Yeah. Well,
It's
Successful.
Yep.
well, and started that early.
and I'll say
Had no
this,
clue.
and I'll end it on this.
Excuse me.
Without grandmother Petty, without Patricia Petty, our mother, without Linda Petty, the Petty racing probably wouldn't be successful because it took those women
there's no doubt it would be.
helping their men to get where they're at. So, we thank you to all the ladies of racing.
We salute all the women of racing.
Amen.
Like and subscribe and check out our online store. Thanks for tuning in.